Today, most of us live in bustling cities, yet the romance of life on the land still stirs something deep within us. It's an essential part of being Australian. Through the words of poets like Henry Lawson and Banjo Patterson, we glimpse the grit and glory of life in the bush, the back-breaking toil of shearers, the triumphs of pioneers, and the ever-present spectres of drought and flooding rains that could wipe out years of effort in a single cruel stroke. While we might only experience this life through poetry, stories, or nostalgic imagery these days, it's woven into our national identity. For many, the real Australia has always been, and perhaps will always be, out in the bush. At the dawn of the 20th century, Australia was a nation of farmers and miners. In fact, two-thirds of Australians lived outside what were then quaintly called capital cities. Farming was fiercely encouraged by governments eager to open up the vast interior. The promise was tempting. Cheap land that, once cleared, was yours to keep. Many took up the challenge, armed with little more than determination and the belief that hard work would yield rewards. It wasn't just settlers who were captivated by farming's promise. By the late 19th century, urban workers in Australia's fledgling industries often dreamt of leaving the smoky factories behind for the open skies and a slice of land to call their own. Farming symbolised a chance to secure a future, to build something enduring for their children. Yet Australia's land, beautiful as it was, could be cruel and unyielding. The harsh reality of farming in this country struck early and struck hard. One story tells of a farmer whose second wheat crop was invaded by the plague-like advance of rabbits. By the time the pests had finished their feast, the once promising fields were reduced to dust. With no choice, the farmer had to burn what remained, creating a roaring blaze that the kids delighted in even as their parents despaired. The struggle continued until the turn of the century, when agricultural innovation turned the tide. Scientists developed wheat varieties resilient enough to withstand the punishing dryness of Australia's climate and soils. By the 1920s, this golden grain became a key export, rising from just 2% to 16% of national exports. Yet, for all its growth, wheat wasn't king. The real riches of Australia lay not in crops, but in wool. By the 1930s, sheep were as much a symbol of Australia as the kangaroo. Entire fortunes were built on their backs, and wool accounted for nearly half of the nation's income. Sheep thrived in the vast paddocks, requiring minimal attention except for their annual shearing. Merino sheep, in particular, were prized, a triumph of breeding that produced the finest wool in the world. Some farmers were so enamoured with this magnificent animal that they advocated for the mighty merino to grace Australia's national coat of arms. The sheer scale of the wool industry captured imaginations. In 1934, The Squatter's Daughter, one of Australia's most iconic films, opened with a stunning sequence of 10,000 sheep mustered into a single paddock. Every red-blooded Aussie knew that the country rode on the sheep's back. It was a spectacle that underscored the importance of wool to the national identity. Wool, they said, was as Australian as the wombat and far more profitable. Yet, the idyllic vision of farming was tempered by harsh truths. Australia is the driest inhabited continent on Earth. If one thing defined the rules of farming in Australia, it was drought. And its relentless cycles of drought have repeatedly brought farmers to their knees. The country's beauty is as unforgiving as it is breathtaking. Heat that scorches the earth, dust storms that roll across the plains like waves of the ocean. Despite the romance of the bush and life on the farm, the reality is that we have a climate as hot as hell and as dry as dust. If it wasn't drought or flooding rains, It was bushfires. Fires that roared through the landscape, consuming everything in their path: fences, crops, homes, and livelihoods. Today, we celebrate the romance of the bush in our songs, poems, and films. But it's more than a romantic notion. It's a cornerstone of who we are as a nation. The bush is where our identity as Australians took shape. A place of camaraderie, resourcefulness, and humour born out of necessity. It's where mateship was more than just a word. It was survival. While modern life has drawn most of us into cities, the stories of the pioneers, the shearers, the drovers, and the farmers continue to resonate. They remind us of the grit that built this nation, the sacrifices made, and the lessons learned in the face of adversity. The untamed land beyond the horizon holds a timeless allure. It's a place of possibilities and promises, of raw beauty and unyielding challenges. And no matter how far we've come or where we're headed, the spirit of the bush lives on in our culture, our humour, and our hearts. So, as we sip our coffee in city cafes or drive through endless suburban streets, we're never too far from the echoes of the bush, a constant reminder of where we began and the stories that shaped us. If that doesn't make you proud to be Australian, then I don't know what will. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I love hearing your thoughts and suggestions. And make sure you hit that subscribe button because one of my upcoming videos will feature an incredible trip to see Big Lizzie, a true icon of Australian engineering history. You definitely won't want to miss that. Thanks again for watching, and if you liked this video, you'll love my last one where we went to see the Murtoa stick shed at over 265 metres long. It's certainly worth a watch. I'll see you in the next one.